And here we go. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the Bible. And before, like the first or second week I was here, I asked you guys to write down some questions that you have. Now we're answering some of the questions. So answering your questions, ding, ding, ding. First one.
I forgot what my question was.
That's okay. I have a whole list of them. So you don't need to remember them. I need to remember them, and I need to go through them. So several of your questions will be answered tonight. I say several. There will be a couple of them that won't be answered, but we'll tackle these real quick. Tonight's topic is on, with all the bad things that are happening in our world, is God still in control of it all? Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of time reading the newspaper or looking at the news on the internet or even on TV to realize the world is messed up. Like, we've got a country right now that's invading another one because it wants to. And they're reported to be doing horrific things to the people of that country as they're exiting. And some of the images, some of the statements that are being made are just awful. Like some horrible things taking place. That's a lot of evil. Like you just look at it and you're like, man, this is evil. How can God still be in control when all this evil is going on? Isn't God good? Like, isn't He supposed to be able to take care of these things? Isn't He supposed to stop these bad things from happening? Doesn't He love those people? Like, I've heard that one too. Like, when bad things happen to people, the first response some people have was, they must not have been really close to God because God would have protected them. It's not really how things work in God's economy. As you can see right now, the rain is falling. Scripture tells us the rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous, the good and the bad. He gives equally. It's according to His will. So tonight we're going to walk through some passages, some real quick passages. So real quick, answering your questions, with all the bad things in the world, is God still in the control? Some things to think about. If God is so good and He's still in control, why is the world still so bad? Why do evil things keep happening? And yes, it's going to be a really nasty thunderstorm here in a second. Why do things still keep happening? So, question we want to know, and the big idea that I want you to gather from tonight is, with all the chaos around us, we can rest knowing that God still is in control. He is still working. He still has everything under control. We don't have to worry about it because God's got it. Now, that sounds very comforting to people who are not suffering. Like, I'm currently not under persecution. I'm currently not being invaded by another country. I'm currently not watching family members with sickness or anything like that. So, for me, like, yeah. But for some people, some of you in this room, like, you've got friends that are hurting. You've got friends that parents are, not in the best situation. You may have a parent that's not in the best situation. And it's hard to see that God is in control in those situations. And so what we're going to look at tonight is a passage out of Genesis. It's really simple. It's the first passage in the Bible. Literally the very first words. Those are really small. Every time. It's really big on my screen on my computer, but it's really small here. I'll read these tonight so you don't have to. All right. God is in control for three reasons. First reason is He's in control because He is the creator of all things. God created everything. That's what the Bible opening up right out the gate tells us. So Genesis 1:1 says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Like, that's a memory verse that most people get. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It sounds a whole lot like John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So, I like working out of a logical progression. That's how my mind works. And I use things like if-then statements. We call them syllogisms, just so you know what the word is, but it's literally, if this happens, then this happens. We call them contingency statements. If you do this, I will do this. Like, if you make good grades, then, you will most likely have a better chance to get a scholarship. If you make poor grades, then you won't. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? If you slap your sister or your sibling, then you're probably going to get in trouble, no matter if they deserved it or not. That used to always make me mad that they deserved it, and I still got in trouble for it. Let's look at this real quick. If you believe Genesis 1:1, then God must be the one who set everything up in the beginning. What does Genesis 1:1 teach us? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Was there anything else with God?
No.
Did it say God and?
No.
Did it say a multitude of gods? It just says God. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So if God created it, then He alone knows how it must be working. So if God set everything up, He alone is the one who knows how it is supposed to work. Real simple. This is a very simple point. If God set up everything, no matter how messed up it looks now, if God set it up and God created it, then God is the only one who knows how it is supposed to function. I can't look at God and go, you know what, the world's not what I think it should be, so you need to follow my plan. Like, do you smell the arrogance in that voice? Like, that's not cool. We don't do that. We can't do that. We're the created being trying to tell the Creator that the Creator messed up. That's like a Ford coming off of the assembly line, turning around and telling the people who made him, you made me wrong. I mean, it was made wrong. It's a Ford anyways, but that's just a different story. Oh, there we go. There we go. Don't walk out on me. I'm just kidding. I really don't care in that argument. I literally don't care. If it has 4 wheels and it gets good gas mileage, I'll take it. I currently drive a Honda, if that tells you anything. So let's keep going with this. If you believe Genesis 1:1, and you believe that God set it all up and He alone is the one that knows how to do it, know how it's supposed to work. If God alone is the one who knows how it's supposed to function, then it is by His wisdom that the universe operates. The world and everything that we see, the universe and everything in it, is functioning based on the way that God originally set it up. Does that mean that it's currently functioning to the capacity that it could be? No. Does anybody remember what happened in Genesis 3? The fall. It was so far-reaching. Like, we get mad at God for, telling the snake that he had to crawl on his belly and telling the woman that childbirth was going to be awful. Like, I've never been through childbirth, so I can't talk about how much pain is incurred in that. However, because man, Adam, ate from the tree along with his wife, it wasn't just Adam that was cursed. The entire creation was cursed. Like, go back and read that. God tells Adam, because you listen to the voice of your wife, cursed is the ground. Like, Adam could walk over and make things happen because he could cultivate the soil because God had made it work that way. Now Adam couldn't just go over and make things happen. He had to work hard to get just a little bit of food from the ground. Like, the whole universe is messed up because of the decision that they made. In fact, Paul picks up on this and he says the creation is groaning as with labor pains, waiting on the arrival of Christ. Like, the creation is wanting to be back to the way that it was. And the only person who knows how it is supposed to be set up is, because who created it? There we go. We're getting some interaction. God alone is the one that created it. This is the most simple point of the night. If you believe Genesis 1:1, nothing else is off the table. We good? Nothing else is off the table. Now, this is where it gets fun. This is where it gets fun. Not only did God create all things, He sustains all things. Now, what in the world does the word sustain mean? If one of you guys had to give me a definition of sustain, like if you sustain something, what are you helping it do? Stay alive. Did you say stay alive? That's an awesome description. I think of like keeping something going. Say, what was that? Yes, watering your plants keeps them alive. It helps them to continue to grow. So sustaining means you are doing the things necessary for growth to continue to happen. We run into a guy in the book of Job, whose name is Job, who's got 3 or 4 friends that come along and they give him some wisdom. It's not very good wisdom. They're basically telling him that he must have done something wrong for God to do all that God has, for the bad things in Job's life to have happened to him. He must be evil. And they're like, Job's like, I'm telling you guys, I've done nothing wrong. In fact, I'm going to plead my case to God. And he's going to tell God, hey, God, this is not right. You can't do this to me. That's essentially what's going on here. And this is God's response to Job. I've got a little bit of it up here, but I want you to feel the emotion in your voice. What version do you have in front of you?
New King James.
New King James. Let me have that one.
It's not intro.
That's good. I want to get some of the old English into this bad boy. You need it.
Good stuff.
It's the good stuff. All right, listen. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Now prepare yourself like a man, and I'm going to question you, and you will answer me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Who stretched the line upon it? To what were its foundations fashioned? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy? Or who shut up the sea with doors? And when it burst forth and issued from the womb? When I made the clouds its garment and thick darkness and swaddling band? And when I fixed my limit for it and set bars and doors? And when I said, this far you may come, but no further. And here your proud waves stop. Have you commanded the morning since your days began, and caused the dawn to know its place, that it might take hold of the ends of the earth, and the wicked be shaken out of it? It takes the form of clay under a seal, and it stands out like a garment. From the wicked their light is withheld, and their upraised arm is broken. Have you entered the springs of the sea, or have you walked in search of the depths? Have the gates of death been revealed to you, or have you seen the doors of the shadow of death? Have you comprehended the breadth of the earth? Tell me if you know all this. Where is the way to the dwelling of the light? And darkness, where is its place? That you take it to its territory, that you may know the path to its home. Do you know it because you were born then, or because the number of your days is great? Have you entered the treasury of the snow, or have you seen the treasury of the hail, which have been reserved for a time of trouble, for a day of battle and war? By what way is light diffused, or the east wind scattered all over the earth? Who has divided the channel for the overflowing water, a path for the thunderbolt? To cause it to rain on land where there is no one, wilderness in which there is no man, to satisfy the desolate waste, and to cause spring forth the growth of tender grass. Has the rain a father? Who has begotten the drops of dew? From whose womb comes the ice? And the frost of heaven, who gives it birth? The waters harden like a stone, and the surface of the deep is frozen. Can you bind the clusters of Pleiades, or loose the belt of a lion? Can you bring out Mazzaroth in its season? Or can you guide the great bear with its cubs? Do you know the ordinances of the heavens, and can you set their dominion over the earth? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds when an abundance of water may cover you? Can you send out lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom into the mind? Who has given understanding to the heart? Who can number the clouds by wisdom? Who can pour out the bottles of heaven when the dust hardens in the clumps and when the clods cling together? Can you hunt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of the young lions when they crouch in their dens or lurk in their lairs to lie in wait? Who provides food for the raven when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? There's a lot of different things that God is in control of right now, right? That's only one chapter of his 3-chapter response. We would like to call this God dropping the mic on Job. Thanks, sir. God, in that moment, wants Job to realize how small his mind is, how narrow his point of view is. But he also wants him to see not only how narrow his point of view, but how wide God's vision is. And all the things that God has in the palm of his hand. Y'all, we sing that song as kids. He's got the whole world in his hands. Come on, don't let me sing it alone. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all, that's not just like a cool thing to say about God. That's reality. All of the universe, everything that is the universe, fits in the palm of his hand. If you want to go marvel and say the whole multiverse fits in the palm of his hand. There is nothing outside of his control, his dominion, his ability to influence. There's nothing outside of him. Nothing takes place without his hand underneath it. Now, this brings up some very serious problems for those who want to pry very deeply into this topic. Some people go, well, since God's hand is over all things, God brings both good and bad. Therefore, God must be evil and good. That's not true. That's not how it works. God is all good, all love, all mercy, all grace. Evil comes from the decisions that you and I make. God could just as easily have created human beings to be puppets, to do every single thing that he wanted them to do every single time. Here's the problem with that. If you're a puppet, the love that you show me is not genuine. That's really what the book of Job was about, right? To see if Job's love for God was genuine. If you are looking at me and you tell me you love me, but you do that based on the fact that I've coerced you to do it, or that you are forced to do it, or that's the only thing you know how to do, am I really experiencing love from you? No, I'm a robot. God gave human beings free will. We don't need to go into all the great details on that, but suffice it to say, you are morally responsible for the decisions that you make because they are your decisions. You have the free will to make those decisions. And it's in the midst of those decisions that evil happens. How many of us in here right now, by show of hands, how many of us in here make the best decision every single time? Nice. Thank you for being honest. I'm not even going to attempt to raise my hand because I definitely don't make the best decision every single time. Why? Because I'm a sinful person. I have desires and wants in my heart because my heart is still desperately wicked. And it needs constantly to be renewed by Christ. It needs to constantly be renewed by God and by the Holy Spirit. So God is in control because he is the sustainer of all things. Here's how that argument works. God is the one who sets up the parameters, sets up the way that the universe is supposed to work. He sets the parameters for the way our universe operates. And he's the one keeping it running like he set it up. Now, he created all things. He's sustaining them because he knows how it's supposed to go. Okay? And we are forced to trust him in how he's operating it. Now, this is not an easy thing to do. But one thing we need to really understand is that line right there in the middle. I don't know if you can kind of see it. We are not in control at all. Like there's a lot of thunderstorms heading this way right now. There's no person in this room who can walk outside and look at the storm and say, go away. You don't have that much control. I don't have that much control. Because if I did, I'd be like, snow, because I love snow. Some of y'all are like, snow can go away until next year, but I really like snow. Hopefully we'll get some Saturday. Point being is none of us are in control. We're just not. We don't have any control of the world around us. If we believe that God is a sustainer, then he also must be in control in order to sustain it completely. Let me rephrase that so I don't stumble over it. If we believe that God is the sustainer, then he has to be the one in control in order for it to be sustained the whole time, to be completely working the way that it's supposed to. Like, have you ever thought about the human body and how special the human body is? So, I'm sure someone's going to correct me on this later. When we studied the human body, the eyeball, your optic nerve grows from two separate locations. The optic nerve is what carries the sight signal from your eyeball to the back of your brain, which is this, I believe it's called the occipital lobe. And what that does is it converts the image into something your brain can understand. The nerves that make up your eye start from the occipital lobe and grow forward. At the same time, starting from your eyeball back. So now, let's think about this on the small level. Every single neuron, which is a nerve cell, has to match up perfectly to the one it's supposed to match up to from the other side. They have to link up perfectly for the signal to get sent perfectly. Like, every one of us in here can see. Some of us see better than others, but that's not an issue with your optic nerve. That's an issue with your lens. The image is coming back from the outside world into your head. And it's doing it perfectly, the way God intended, from back to front. Do you know the odds of that actually happening every single time perfectly? Do you know how much distance has to be covered? This is like you taking off running from Knoxville. Let's say you two. You both take off running from Knoxville. Kean starts here in Knoxville. Jackson, you start running from San Francisco. You don't communicate at all. You have no communication with each other. And you take off running from that distance. And what are the odds that you two will end up at the same crossroads in the dead center of the United States? At the same time, boop, high five each other. What are the odds that you two do that? With all the roads that you could travel, what's the odds that you could do that? We won't make fun of Mariah tonight. Her voice is awesome. But yes, Mariah is more accurate. Like, there's literally no chance. Like, there's a mathematical chance that it could happen, but there's no chance. Like, there's too many routes you could take. Like, you can take any road. You can turn at any intersection, wherever you want to go. Like, for all intents and purposes, Kian may end up in, like, Toronto. Jackson end up in, like, Acapulco, Mexico. I mean, you never know where we go. But it's a matter of how odd is it going to be if you two were to get together perfectly. Y'all, every time a human being is created in the womb, that takes place. The outside the norm situations are when that doesn't happen. The normal situation, the way God designed it, is they grow together. That's just one part of your body. That's incredible. That's the way your body was created. And God set it up that way so it could be because He is the sustainer. He knows how it's supposed to work, and He sets it up to work. Last one, and we all should know this verse too. Last one, God is in control because He is working all things towards His ending. So, recap. He created everything, knows how it's supposed to be set up. He sustains everything. He's making sure it runs the way it's supposed to. And He's working it towards His end. Let's think about that. He's working it towards His end. Here's the verse for you. Romans 8:28. We know that all things, we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God and who are called according to His purpose. God has a plan and a purpose for how the universe will turn out. We know this plan and purpose. We know how it's going to end. We can read the book of Revelation. We may not know all the different details because there's some crazy stuff in Revelation that we just aren't sure of what it actually means. But that's not the point. The point is the end of Revelation sets up this beautiful image, and we'll talk about this in a second. If these statements are true, that God has created everything and that He sustains it towards His end, then God is working all things according to His purpose towards His ending. At any moment in this conversation, has He ever asked us what we want to do? Is He going to ask our opinion on how the universe should operate? This isn't an arrogance thing on God's part. God doesn't need my help to run the world. The first thing He says to Job is, "Who is this that darkens my counsel with words without knowledge?" Basically, who is the idiot that sat up and spoke and said the things that he ain't got no business saying? Speaking from a point of view that they don't have. This would be like me talking about how good a specific hockey team is. I don't watch hockey. So if I just started telling you right now that this team, let's say the Colorado Avalanche, is the best team in the NHL right now. Maybe. Like, it's not true. I don't know how good they are or bad they are. But point being is, like, I'm not in a position to talk about it. Or what if I were to start talking about the pain of childbirth? I'm a dude. I don't have a leg to stand on in that conversation. I just know it hurts really bad. That's all I know. It hurts really bad. So I don't have a leg to stand on. I don't have any place to stand and say, I have a point of view here. We just don't have that. God didn't ask for that. If the statements are true that God is working all things towards His purpose and His ending, if He created and is sustaining and is working all things towards His end, we've got to be able to look at His end and see whether or not it's actually good. So, do y'all remember the ending? You read Revelation, remember the ending? Here's their ending. Being united with Him for all eternity in a place with perfect peace, perfect tranquility. We will know God and we will be fully known by Him. Like, y'all got friends in here. Y'all got best friends in here. Does your best friend know every single thing about you? Not just like the cool things that you want to tell them, but the deepest, darkest places of your heart, the things that you don't want nobody to know. Does your best friend know? There's going to be a moment in your life, if you're a Christian, that those deepest and darkest places in your heart that you don't want anybody to know about will become fully known. And it's going to be a beautiful thing because there's going to be perfect mercy that covers them all. There'll be no sin. There'll be no temptation. There'll be no pain, no suffering, no death. Perfect. peace. That's the ending that God is working towards. It's not an ending where we are just, it's all one big battle scene and it's over. No. The battle is already fought. It's already won. Satan's defeated. What we're going to walk into eternity is a time where we get to do and to fulfill the job that God gave us at creation. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. We will become the gardeners, if you will, that we were always meant to be. We will use the gifts that God's given us to make His creation flourish in perfect peace with Him. Because He is working all things towards His end. If God's ending is where we are heading because He created it and He sustains it, then He is the only one who is in control. Even when it looks like nobody's in control. How many of you have had those days where it doesn't look like anybody's driving the bus you're on? It's just all over the place. Yeah. We've all had those days. You feel like nothing you do works. You feel like nothing you do matters. You're always getting in trouble. You say the wrong things. You have the wrong attitudes. All those days. How many y'all have had those days, right? God's redeeming those days. God's in control even in those days. And the fact that God's in control in those days should give us hope, should give us peace, and should give us comfort. No matter what's going on in our world, God is still in control. I can't unsee some of the images that I've seen on the news from what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. I can't unsee them. It forces me to pray. Because outside of God intervening, I don't know what is going to change that situation. But even in the midst of it looking like God's not got anything going on over there, God is still working. There are stories coming out of the Ukrainian churches where people are begging God to move in their midst. People are getting saved. Lives are being changed. Hearts are being turned to God in the midst of the trouble, in the midst of the trials, in the midst of all the craziness going on over there. Y'all, we may not understand what or why things are happening. However, God is still in control and is still the authority over things, of even life itself. Quickly, I want everyone in here to hold your breath until you pass out.
Are you being serious?
I'm dead serious. I'm proving a point. Everybody hold your breath as long as you can. How many of you have total control of your breath? Like you can start and stop your breathing whenever you want to. None of you. Even if you held your breath until you were trying to hold your breath until you can't breathe no more, your body passes out from lack of oxygen. And then you breathe. Like you don't have that control. So if you can't even control the basic function of your life of breathing, like none of you can stop your heart just by sitting here and going, okay, I'm not going to beat it anymore. Like we laugh at that because it's absurd. It's dumb. Like really? Who has the audacity to believe that you can do that? That should tell us right now how little control we actually have and how much control God has over life itself. Guys, we can rest even when things are hard, knowing that the one who created us and sustains us is also going to work everything out towards His end. God's got the end in sight. He's already set it up. He's already got it planned out. He's already got everything put together. It's going to end with Christ being victorious and seated at the right hand of the Father. And all of us who are Christians are going to be what they call co-heirs. We are going to enjoy the inheritance that Christ receives for what's happened here on earth. We will have perfect peace with God at all times. There will be no more pain. Like my ACL won't hurt every time it rains. Like Jackson can slide all he wants in the dirt. He's not going to scrape up the side of his leg. It's just not going to happen that way. Like Kean won't break his arm anymore. Like that won't happen. Why? Because there's perfection. In the presence of God, there's perfection. And that's where we will be. Any other stance that we take on this to where we think that we have to be in control is nothing but arrogance. Nothing but pure pride. If you think that you have to be in control of what's going on in the world around you, that is an arrogant spirit that's telling God, I don't trust you to take care of it. And therefore, I want to take care of it myself. You can walk that path. I've walked it many times, and every single time I've come up empty. Because I can't control it. I don't have the power to. So who better to turn to than the one who created it, sustains it, and is working it towards his end? God knows best. We do not. Therefore, we got to trust him completely, even when it's hard. Father God, thank you for this night. Thank you for this time that we've had together with students. God, I pray that you would bless them this week. God, I pray that you would show them yourself. I pray that you would allow them to see that no matter what goes on around them, that you are completely in control. God, you love them. You desire a relationship with them, Lord, and I pray that you would draw them to you. I pray that as we go through this week, Lord, that we would serve you. We would be faithful to the calling that you placed in our lives, Lord, that we would seek to find ways that we could point others to you. God, thank you for loving us. Thank you for providing for us. Thank you for protecting us. It's in your Son's precious name we pray. Amen.